Many of you have probably already experienced your first frost. I know that we have here in Tennessee. We had 2 nights that got really low, and of course some things died back, but there is a surprising amount of things still growing, and I want to show you those and why they're still growing. So let me show you some things. If you remember from my last video, we planted all of this beautiful garlic. We have this whole bed of cloves that I saved from last year's garlic. And then this bed over here has some garlic that I just bought from the grocery store. This garlic will stay green all winter long. When you get your first frost, they might turn a little yellow. Don't be alarmed, because what's happening is your garlic has gone dormant for the winter, and then once that weather gets warm again in the spring, it'll start to grow again. So don't be alarmed if your garlic stops growing or if it turns a little yellow. It's just going dormant. Another thing that is going to survive most of the winter, if you have mild winters, and even some of these herbs can go really like at freezing level and below, and you'll be surprised. So don't go pulling out all your herbs because you think they're done for the season. Just see what holds on, and they'll tell you if they are a perennial or an annual. Now, if you don't know the difference between those two words, an annual is something that you plant every year. It will die when a hard freeze comes or a frost, and you will have to plant that again next year. A perennial is something that you plant once. It goes dormant in the winter. It may continue to grow, but may grow slowly. It may die back completely looking dead, but the roots are going deep underneath. And that plant will come back to life in the spring. That is a perennial. And I have quite a few perennial herbs because they just keep giving. My garden here looks quite different because we did just move, if you haven't followed that journey. So I pulled off clumps of my perennials at the last property and brought them along. And some of them are planted in my garlic beds just for the time being until I figure out where to put them. So plants like sage will grow mostly all winter long. Unless it gets really, really cold, it'll die back. But for the most part, I harvest sage all year long. If it starts to die back and it just looks like sticks like that, it will still come back. And then rosemary is another one that is pretty hardy. Oh my word, if you guys could just smell this, it's amazing. And it may die back again, but again, it will come back in the spring and be green. Thyme is one of the most hardiest herbs that I have found. I have a kid hollering for me. And thyme is one of my favorites because it really does a good job at like spreading out. Like you can see that already this is starting to trail off, and this was just the main clump that I planted, and it's very hardy. Things like those herbs, what I will do for the fall is I will go through and I will layer these beds pretty well with another layer of leaf mulch. That kind of insulates them. If we were to get extreme temperatures here that aren't normal and my plants aren't acclimated to it, it can stunt and can kill them. So what I try to do is give them an insulation for the winter a little bit. I will layer these beds with a thick layer of leaves for a couple different reasons. Leaves build your garden soil. They add organic matter into your beds. They're going to hold moisture because your beds do need moisture throughout the winter. So we kind of think we turn off the gardening brain for the winter and we're like, oh, they don't need to be watered. But if you don't water your beds, one, they get kind of locked up and they won't retain water properly. You don't want that to happen. You also want to keep moisture in there for healthy soil and the things that are going on in the soil. And leaves will add compost naturally, organic matter to the soil to hold in that water. It'll create lots of good food for the things that are living in the soil. And leaves are a natural resource. Like if you look around at all the trees that you have on your property, even if you live in the suburbs, even if you live in town, I guarantee there are neighbors around you that are doing the work for you by raking up all of their leaves and putting them in bags on the curbside. Go get those. That is gold for the garden. And my plan actually over in this big hot mess, when we get in there, is to layer that garden with leaves. So leaves in the winter is a good layer of protection to protect your plants against any kind of crazy extreme weather that they might not be used to. You can see back here I have a bunch of different pots that we brought along. Again, this oregano is going to be a perennial. It'll come back every year. Even in this pot, it might die back a little bit just because there's not a lot of soil for it to go. Excuse you. Free-range chickens are great until they start scratching up your garden beds. This is echinacea. It looks super sad now, but it will come back really strong in the spring. We got bee balm back there, another perennial. This would be an example of an annual. This is holy basil, and you can tell it is completely fried. But the beauty with annuals is you let them just kind of go to seed and then they dry off. This right here has seeds in it. So all the little black dots that you see in there is holy basil seeds, and this is how I get my volunteers every year. Doesn't take a lot of work. Mint is also super hardy. So this died back pretty good when we got that temperature in the 20s, but it's come back since then because we've had beautiful weather. So even with mint, it'll die back really hard, but it'll come back in the spring. Again, these are all plants that I brought from the last house, so they don't have a permanent home yet. But these are strawberries. Strawberries are a perennial. They send off little baby shoots every year, and so they look super healthy still. And then this is just garlic. Let's just list off a couple perennial herbs so you know. Rosemary, sage, oregano, thymes. Most all thymes are pretty hardy. I have found really good success with lemon thyme. It takes off, it does beautiful. Again, oregano is a great perennial herb. You plant a tiny little patch and you will be harvesting oregano for years in that patch, continually growing, that you can gift it to many people. And then you think about herbs like basil, or what's a couple other ones? Actually, basil might be one of the bigger herbs that is an annual. A lot of herbs are perennials, which is great because you make the investment up front and they keep coming back every single year. So a couple things I do in the winter to clean up all of that is, if they are producing and they are green, I let them go. But come spring, when the weather is continually making an upward climb, I will take my pruners out and I will cut all of those herbs really low to the ground. That basically gives them new, bushy, healthy growth for spring for you to harvest. And then I do that again right before fall. I cut everything to the ground really hard again. That gives you a second wave for the fall. Like right now, they're producing really well. And then do my mulching in the fall and stuff like that. Start the cycle over. Another thing that will continue to grow all winter long are lettuces, cabbages, think carrots sometimes, depending on where you are. With a little protection can go a long way. Let me show you my lettuce bed and what it's looking like, even after having a couple nights in the low 20s. This right here is my lettuce bed, and it is just overflowing, packed full. We have been eating so much lettuce, and this will continue to grow pretty much all winter. I have a pretty simple cold frame that I put over this. It is nothing fancy. It's like, I don't know, maybe a $20 thing I bought on Amazon. It came with some frost fabric, some little hoops, and last year I had lettuce we had record-breaking temperatures last year for a long time, and it was like 19 degrees for almost a week, and the lettuce survived. So below that, it just depends on your climate. You really got to know, well, climate-wise, what your plants can handle. But we'll be harvesting lettuce from there probably well into January, I would say. Maybe even longer if I cover it and our temps are pretty normal. And then again, here is one of my herb beds I brought over. Lavender is another one that is a perennial. You plant it once. Lavender can be a little finicky, and it really is finicky with soil. So some years my lavender will thrive and I'll have lavender for the next year. Some years I have to get it again. So it all just depends. And then things like yarrow, it's looking kind of sad, but come spring, it will be happy and thriving. Lemon balm is another one in like the tea family. It's in the mint family. It will come back strong every single year. So there are a lot of things that you can plant once, and they might die back. They might go dormant for the winter, but they'll come back again in the spring. We're just gonna keep repeating that so that way you remember that. Put the investment in. And then stepping away from herbs and things like that, blueberries, okay? So I just transplanted these blueberries. I found 4 blueberry plants on the property in like random locations. And the best time to plant, like transplant blueberries and plant out trees, fruit trees and things like that, are actually in the fall when their roots start to go dormant. And they look really pretty. Let me show you one up close. So blueberries get like beautiful fall foliage. And what will happen is all of these leaves will fall off of these blueberry plants. They will look like they're dead, basically. But in the spring, they'll get new growth and they will be really happy. The same with most all fruit trees. We have a bunch of apple trees on the property. I don't know what kind, so I'll have to wait till the spring to see that. And then we have multiple unmarked fruit trees. So stay tuned for that, because spring here is going to be really exciting. I cannot wait to see what is growing here. But I wanted to give you just a little quick video of what will continue to grow, what is hardy, what's an annual, what's a perennial. These are all things that I did not know when I first started growing, and we just assume that everyone knows it, but they don't. So hopefully that little bit in my garden showed you what I'm growing, gave you some new lingo, and give you a tip about mulching your beds. Do not throw away free resource. There's a reason the leaves fall on the grass, and we leave them. We mulch them with our mower. We will just mow them, and that is this year's fertilizer. Anyway, I hope that you learned something new. We'll see you next time.